Carson. Inspired words, Rita Carson.
Tonight I'm going to share with you 3 very different poems that I like for different reasons. The first poem, I remember reading it as a child, even though I don't consider it a child's poem by any means. It's haunting and enchanting. It's called Tarantella by Hilaire Belloc. And the Miranda in the poem is Miranda McIntosh, who he met in the Pyrenees at an inn, and he wrote the poem 20 years later. Tarantella is a dance that's supposed to be brought on by the intoxication after you're bit by a tarantula, which is similar to being induced by falling in love. There's 2 very different parts in the poem, I'm sure you'll notice. Do you remember an inn, Miranda? Do you remember an inn? And the tedding and the spreading of the straw for the bedding? And the fleas that teased in the high Pyrenees? And the wine that tasted like tar? And the cheers and the jeers of the young muleteers under the vine of the dark veranda? Do you remember an inn, Miranda? Do you remember an inn? And the cheers and the jeers of the young muleteers who hadn't got a penny and who weren't paying any. And the hammer on the doors of the den, and the hip-hop hap of the clap of the hands to the swirl and the twirl of the girl gone chancing, glancing, dancing, backing and advancing, snapping of the clapper to the spin, out and in, and the ting-tong-tang of the guitar. Do you remember an inn, Miranda? Do you remember an inn? Nevermore, Miranda, nevermore. Only the high peaks soar, and Aragon's a torrent at the door. No sound. In the walls of the halls where falls the thread of the feet of the dead to the ground. No sound, but the boom of the fall waterfall like doom. That's a pretty heavy poem for a child, wouldn't you say? So now that I've got you in that doom gloom, the next poem I remember reading as a teenager. And what stood out for me was the contrast between the bees and the trees and nature and the horrors of war. And it's called Lessons of War, Naming of the Parts by Henry Reed. Today we have naming of the parts. Yesterday we had daily cleaning. And tomorrow morning we shall have what to do after firing. But today we shall have the naming of the parts. Japonica glistens like coral in all the neighboring gardens. And today we have the naming of the parts. This is the lower sling swivel, and this is the upper swing swivel, which you will use when you're giving your slings. And this is the piling swivel, which in your case you have not got. The branches hold in the gardens their silent, eloquent gestures, which in our case we have not got. This is the safety catch, which is always released with an easy flick of the thumb. And please don't let me see anyone using his finger. You can do it quite easy if you have any strength in your thumb. The blossoms are fragile and motionless, never letting anyone see any of them using their finger. And this you can see is the bolt. The purpose of this is to open the breech as you can see. We can slide it rapidly backwards and forwards. We call this easing the spring. And rapidly backwards and forwards. The early bees are assaulting and fumbling the flowers. They call it easing the spring. They call it easing the spring, and it's perfectly easy. If you have any strength in your thumb, like a bolt, and the breech, and the cocking piece, and the point of balance, which in our case we have not got. And the almond blossoms, silent in all the gardens, and the bees going backwards and forwards. For today we have the naming of the parts. Enough of war, enough of past memories. I found the next poem when I was an adult, and I'd like to end this on an upbeat moment, a love poem. I love whimsical, I love unconventional, I love E.E. Cummings. He disregards capital letters in his poetry sometimes, and his poems are always slightly quirky. It's called I Carry Your Heart, I Carry It in My Heart. I carry your heart with me, I carry it in my heart. I am never without it. Anywhere I go, you go, my dear. And whatever is done by only me is your doing, my darling. I fear no fate, for you are my fate, my sweet. I want no world, for beautiful you are my world, my true. And it is always you. Whatever a moon has always meant, and whatever a sun will always sing is you. Here's the deepest secret nobody knows. Here is the root and the bud of the bud and the sky of the sky and a tree called life, which grows higher and the soul can only hope where the mind can hide.
Visiting hours for adult services are over in 10 minutes. Thank you for your cooperation.
And this is the wonder that keeps the stars apart. I carry your heart. I carry it in my heart.